France has huge plans as a European nation, and Europe should be scared if it collapses. With many ideas for the European Union, France emerged as an instant savior after Brexit. But things have not turned out as great, and the Union stands torn as ever. This comes at a time of mass-scale riots all across France. But where did things go south? And what role did the French president play in all this? Let's dive in. Crisis at home. Only a year after getting re-elected, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, faced some big problems at home, and these could well affect his role on the world stage. France's positions on issues like EU expansion have been very important. They have also held a big sway in helping NATO, supporting Ukraine, and dealing with climate change. But while France accommodated its ambitions for Europe, things went sour at home. And not long ago, there were huge riots throughout the country. In July 2023, chaos broke loose in France, especially in places around big cities called banlieues. There was a massive amount of tension. These areas had money problems, high unemployment, and growing resentment. This led to widespread boycotts and revolts in big parts of the country. It all started on June 27, 2023. In a roadside check, police officers shot and killed 17-year-old Nahel, who had Moroccan and Algerian heritage. This tragic incident has brought attention to long-standing problems in France. There had been an uptick in racism. Incidents of police violence have followed. This event sparked widespread sorrow and anger, leading to a series of protests and riots. In the streets of Paris, demonstrators of various ages held up signs bearing powerful messages. Some placards stood out: "Stop state violence," "Don't forgive or forget," and "The law kills." They drew attention to Article 435(1) of the Internal Security Code of 2017. This article gives the law enforcement power to use lethal force, but only in cases where a suspect refuses to cooperate. After days of protests, the police still could not stop the people from wreaking havoc. After the fifth day of riots, tougher restrictions were imposed, and the same article was invoked again. While some of the violence came from people who wanted to make things worse, a lot of it originated via social media and messaging apps. This led to a lot of fires and damage in the banlieues, which left people feeling very sad and distressed. Even though there were efforts to improve these areas recently, the problems persisted. The most important thing was to stop the violence. Macron quickly went back to Paris to deal with the situation and set up a special group to manage the crisis. They used a step-by-step plan to send more police to the streets and asked social media platforms to help find the people causing trouble. They were also worried that Marine Le Pen and her party might use the unrest for their own political gain. But Macron's government, which is kind of a centrist government, had to be really careful. They had to deal with groups on the far left and also the far right who didn't agree with him. Despite his new law about pensions, these riots gave their opponents a chance to challenge Macron's leadership again. People on the far left said the riots happened because of many problems, not one. Problems like French people not having enough money and the lack of care for the banlieues. These are areas around French cities where many foreigners and immigrants live. But some on the far right, like Marine Le Pen, said Macron was being too soft on crime and immigration. The contest captures the heart of French society right now. There is a concern about the radical rise of the right in France. In this tense situation, Macron's response was crucial. He made some remarks about the police and said violence was not okay. He also announced a formal investigation into the police officer involved in the shooting, but that was about it. Macron expressed afterward that crimes in areas around big cities are often committed by immigrants. He went on to make comments about the immigration laws that need to be stricter, so that they help France grow stronger again. About 61% of French people think their country is getting worse. They feel helpless in the face of so much moral corruption. They don't trust their leader and feel let down by his promises. Even though Macron won again, many people are unhappy, and he's not as powerful as before. Problems with immigration and covert racism are rampant, and those policies are why immigrants and foreigners are angry, not the other way around. Macron's European Union. Emmanuel Macron's leadership style is now drawing global attention, especially in the post-Brexit era. First, France had a disagreement with the European Union this year about how they hire people. They thought it wasn't fair to test candidates only in English. This included exams for certain jobs in fields like space, defense, and economics. They wanted to give French candidates a fair chance, and also to promote the use of different languages in EU institutions, not just English. And while many countries like Italy joined the protest, others were skeptical. Macron has shown certain traits compatible with only self-rule, shared one diplomat. And then, in October, there was a meeting in Hamburg with Germany. Now, France and Germany are the two most important powers in the European Union, but there has been some trouble in their shared paradise. This month, France said the Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, could be a problem for Europe. The French think AfD doesn't like Ukraine and is too friendly with Russia. A member of Macron's team, Laurence Boone, believes AfD want to break up the European Union without having a good plan for what comes next. AfD recently said that the EU isn't working well and needs big changes. Is the issue simply that Macron sees himself as the natural successor to the former German leader Angela Merkel? Or is he vying for power over more important reigns in Europe? This has sometimes caused disagreements in Brussels, because Macron's ideas don't always match up with what Germany wants. Also, Germany has focused on a partnership with the United States, especially because of the situation in Ukraine. This might be causing some problems in their relationship with France. Another thing to note is Macron's strained relationship with the leader of Germany, Olaf Scholz. They have very different personalities that often clash. Right now, one of the main arguments is about how the EU handles electricity. Germany, along with some other countries, wants to make stricter rules about how much government support can be given to power prices. This could be a problem for French businesses. And because neither the French people nor the greater European region feels one with the French president, things are a bit confusing. On the one hand, he wants to make sure France has a big say in important matters. This could be seen as a bold move, considering Macron's approach to things. But, on the other hand, how much power does he want over these issues? And is it justified? The way forward. The recent meeting in Hamburg has a big impact on the European Union and Europe as a whole. Germany and France discussed important issues like energy, industry, and defense. And Macron disagrees, only because he has, to quote him, big ideas for Europe. He wants the EU to rely less on the United States, especially after he gave a speech about the Taiwan crisis recently. Macron believes the EU should be able to make important decisions by itself, without depending too much on other countries. Macron's plan has different parts: economic independence, supporting industries, protecting markets, fair trade, and working together. He thinks the EU should make high-quality products and cooperate with all member countries. Macron also thinks it's important for the EU to have a common plan for industries like clean energy and microchips. This is where the disagreement with Germany comes in. They believe that European countries should be able to raise prices for national interest's sake. What's more, Macron also wants to produce the technologies the EU needs to fight climate change. But many people wonder if Macron's plan for economic independence will work. Right now, the EU depends on China for important technologies needed for clean energy. This makes it harder for the EU to achieve its climate goals. The EU is trying to make rules about these important materials, but it might be tough because the EU already relies on other countries for them. So, there is also a bit of a cycle that it risks running. European leaders agreed to increase defense spending and support Ukraine after the invasion, but they wanted the EU to be more independent in defense while still working with NATO. Macron's idea is different though. He wants a shared European force, a common defense budget, and security pacts. Some experts have boldly dismissed the idea of completely independent international relations. They think Macron is only asking for more freedom from the United States, and it hurts other economies and countries. And on the legitimacy front, these countries need American support. Because though European countries have a lot of military resources, it could be hard to use them without diplomatic help. On top of that, the EU is a host of countries. They have different views and needs than France. They also have different ideas about important global issues, like competition between different types of governments and who they want to trade with. This makes it even harder to have one clear plan for Europe, but Macron's insistence has not died down. So on top of all of this, the riots back home are just a bad look, one that should be a wake-up call against the policies and behavior of the French president. Before asserting dominance on a global scale, he has to deal with important issues at home. There is also an urgent need for France to understand that the EU is not a monolith. In the past, unification methods have not worked. To make his vision for Europe a reality, Macron needs to handle all these complicated situations and also support EU countries with their different ideas and priorities. Only then can France and the rest of the EU unify the struggle for development and growth. Till then, there's a more pressing issue on hand for Europe. So, what do you think? Will Europe catch its balance before it stumbles? Or is there another participant in the wave of extreme nationalism? Let us know in the comments. And if you found the video interesting, please like, subscribe, and share. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.